We say good evening and praise the Lord to everyone. Thank you for joining us for our rehab session on today, May 11th. We thank you for taking time out of your schedule, those who have joined us in person, and those who have joined us through Facebook Live and YouTube. We thank you for taking time out to spend some time with us as we spend some time with the Lord. Our rehab session where we're restoring, equipping, healing, and building. We thank you, we thank you, we thank you. At this time, as an accustomed for this ministry, we're going to change the climate and environment with our declaration on the count of three. 1, 2, 3. We decree and declare to speak life and not death. We will build and not condemn, help and not hinder. This atmosphere will be charged with faith and not fear. We are the head and not the tail. We are above only and not beneath. In all things we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. This domain is for restoration and dominion. Thank you, thank you, thank you for helping me with our declaration. We want to thank you again for tuning in with us. Those who are tuning in on Facebook and YouTube, please take the time to share with somebody that Restoration Dominion is live. We're going to jump right back in. We're currently in a new series called We Need to Talk. Communication is key. This is week 2, and we're going to review some of last week's discussion and move into the types of communications tonight. Our base scripture for this series is Ephesians 4:29. Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to the use of edifying, they may minister grace unto the hearers. Let's do a quick review of last week. Understand this, we said this last week as we began. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good, but many of us know what happens when we hear the phrase, we need to talk. So it's not the most comfortable thing, but it has to be done. And one of the things we're trying to do for this series is when we get done, that we have learned and gained and practiced some things to help us with our communication. Understand this. Please remember these 2 quotes for this series. The worst distance between 2 people is misunderstanding. That's why we want to sharpen. We want to make sure we communicate better because we're trying to eliminate situations where misunderstanding is the foundation of it. We want to communicate better. We want to practice. Remember this also during this series. When someone else is speaking, practice getting out of your head and into their heart. So those are 2 quotes we really want to drive home during this series. Please let us be mindful. Communication is the process of sending and receiving messages through verbal or nonverbal means, including speech, oral communication, writing, and graphical representations such as maps and charts, signs, signals, and behavior. Remember, many people forget this, that our behavior is a form of communication. And most people don't think that. They think, but your behavior is a form of communication. Listen, if the receiver can see the sender, he or she can obtain not only the message content, but also the nonverbal communication that the sender is giving off. From confidence to nervousness to professionalism or even to disrespect. If the receiver can hear the sender, he or she can also pick up on cues from the sender's tone of voice, such as emphasis and emotion. So we got to remember, one of the things while we're talking about communication is because that's how we know what's going on with each other is communicating. And you have to be very mindful how and when we communicate. And listen to this. Remember this. You can't not communicate. Remember that. We are always communicating. We're always communicating. Remember also this. Very important. I have to learn this. Many of us have to learn this, got to practice this. You can't take back what you have communicated. Once it's out there, it is out there. So it behooves us to make sure that we think before we speak. Many times we run that stop sign in our mind and it's just coming out. No brakes, all gas. I got to say it. I got to get it off my chest. But you got to remember, once it comes out, you can't take it back. Only thing you can do now, depends on what it said, is ask for forgiveness down the road, dress it up some, but you have to remember, you can't take it back once you put it out. Please remember, facial expression and body language often speak louder than words. Remember that facial expression, body language. I'm not getting any facial expressions now. That's a good thing. Facial expressions and body language often speak louder than words. Please remember this. We said this last week. Please remember, just because the body language is good and the tone is good does not always mean that the words of the message will be received with joy. The message is still important. I know you can say, hey, my posture was great. I said it nice and soft. I wasn't edgy. I wasn't rough. But the message is still, somebody's going to still say, there's no great way to say I hate you. It's no great way to say I wish you would drop dead. I mean, it don't matter about the tone and thing. What's important is the message, what is actually said. Please remember that. Please. We're going to jump in to types of communication. We're going to go over 5. There's many types, but these are the 5 main things that we're going to deal with this lesson. Type of communication. Number 1 is verbal. Most of us are very familiar with that. Most of us do that. Right now, I am verbally communicating. I am the messenger. Those are listening are the receivers. I'm sending out a message for you to receive verbal. Verbal, spoken language, and includes not only language and words spoken, but verbal also is the tone in which they are spoken in. The cadence, the speed, is it formal language, informal language? We're talking verbal. The spoken language, the words, and the tone in which they're spoken. Verbal. What we have to remember when we look at tone of voice. Tone of voice is very important when you speak verbal, when you're communicating verbally, According to Merriam-Webster, the way a person is speaking to someone is their tone of voice. Very simple definition. In essence, it's how you sound when you say the words out loud. That's your tone. How you sound. And a lot of times what we have to remember is that many people have to remember is how it's said a lot of times. Like we said, most people will say, well, I try my best to soften it. I try my best to clean it up. But you have to remember your tone is very important because I am one. I know there's a few others. I don't do well with somebody yelling at me. I don't. That's just me. I'd rather for you to say it in a way, how can I say it? When somebody starts yelling, when they don't need to yell, automatically not that I shut down and start crying. It's almost like I block them out because I don't need you to yell at me for me to hear you. And many times what we have to understand with the verbal, this is what's very important. Many people hear people talking. I don't want you to just hear me. I want you to listen. So once somebody starts yelling, then I hear you, but I'm not listening because I'm blocked, because you don't have to yell at me. I'm one, please forgive me. I don't mean to be offensive. Some people say when I talk on the phone, my voice is so soft and so low that they said, what are you trying to sell? I would say something, are you a sex phone operator? The way I just don't like to be loud on the phone, please. I'm sorry. I'm not one that I need everybody in the room, everybody on the bus, everybody in the grocery store to hear my conversation. So I try to be as conscious as I can about my tone because I don't need everybody to hear me. So that's one of the things for me is what turned me off and when people are talking verbal, when they're loud. Understand that a phone is designed for you not to talk but so loud. So those are the things you got to understand. When you come to the verbal, you have to make sure you understand your tone is very important. Listen, your tone is very important. Understand, when we talk, have you ever talked to somebody when they're talking, they get excited, their voice elevates? Have you ever met some people, no matter how they talk, they're not yelling or screaming and things of that nature? Even some people, if their voice elevates while you're talking to them, you know there's something wrong because normally they're calm. Normally they're the same tone. Tone is very important. We read the scripture last week. We're going to read it again. Proverbs 15:1, New Living Translation says, a gentle answer deflects anger, but harsh words make tempers flare. How many times, yes, how many times has how somebody responded to you cause you to be raised in your flesh. Have when somebody say something a certain way, or somebody say what, or somebody call your name a certain way, it makes you respond in a way like, prime example, who you talking to? Mm-hmm. What did you just say? One of the things that happen now is you better be careful when you call people out of their name. You better be careful. We have to learn it. Listen to this. What's very important is what I'm coming to learn, not only for ministry, not only for the workplace, not only definitely with family, that we have to be careful how we respond. Because one of the things that always make me laugh, if anybody remember, I'm going to mess up the movie, it's a Tyler Perry movie with the couples. What was that movie called? Why Did I Get Married? Oh, Lord. When the conversation changed, when stuff hit the fan, things start to go crazy. When people start revealing, unfolding, people say certain things. You can see people flesh rise, and you can see where when it gets to a certain point, definitely with family, even sometimes with friends, it becomes tit for tat. So we have to be careful how we respond and what we say. Because a lot of times we want to hold our peace. But this old flesh still got a leg sticking up out the ground. This old flesh, certain things haven't been buried. So we have to be careful what we say. Listen to this. Proverbs 15:4, 3 verses later, says this: gentle words are a tree of life, but a deceitful tongue crushes the spirit. We have to make sure that we are mindful of what we say. Because this is what happens. How many Thanksgivings, how many Christmases, how many birthdays, how many gatherings that the family get together, you find out more and more secrets that you did not know, that you didn't need to know. It wasn't enhancing your life, but it always seemed like at those gatherings, you found out more about that uncle that didn't say too much. Or you find out more about Big Mama that you didn't know. You was counting Big Mama had 6 kids, but when you leave the cookout, you're like, I never seen them before. No, Big Mama had 12 kids. But you have to be careful with the words you share and how you respond. Listen to this one. Let's jump over to Proverbs 16:24. Listen, it says, kind words are like honey, sweet to the soul and healthy for the body. Kind words. You have to understand, and this is what I'm learning. You don't have to accept every argument you're invited to, you don't have to accept that invitation. Because you have to understand, the flesh likes that juicy stuff. The flesh likes to get back. Oh no, you didn't say that about me. And have you noticed there's some people say, I have been like this. It's still out. It's still out for debate on my end. But there are some people, they don't just push the buttons. They lean on the buttons. And there's some people, they don't just lean on the buttons. When they get up off the button, they go grab some tape to tape the button down. So the thing is that we have to understand our words can do that too. I am one. My wife will tell you, I am one. And there are some people that have to get the last word in. Get the last love tap in and take off running. But we have to understand that we got to be careful, because sometimes what you have to be careful is you don't want that last word, that last get back to do more damage than you anticipate. Let's move on to Proverbs 18:20. Wise words satisfy like a good meal. The right words bring satisfaction. Have you ever, and it's true, I've done it sometimes because of nerves and stuff. There are some times in life people don't know what to say. You know, in time of death, you want to say something nice and kind, but you say something crazy. Or you say something being inconsiderate because you're nervous. Death makes people uncomfortable. You love the person. You want to make sure you're there. But what I've come to learn in certain situations, there's times where being quiet, less is more. There's sometimes when people are suffering with a loss of someone, just your presence is enough. But you being motor mouth and got something to say every time somebody talk, you jump in with a memory and things. But there's just times where people just want to unload. People want to talk and get it out, and we got to be mindful of it. And see, we got to have wise words. You got to be wise. Because the thing when I get done saying what I need to say, did it help or did it hinder? Did it cause us to be further apart? Did it draw closer? Now, I'm going to be honest. I can't remember who said it. Some things just ought to be said. There is a time for that too. There is a time, because sometimes for some situations, some individuals, people have been skating around things too long and nobody have told them the truth. Even the Bible says, now I'm your enemy because I told you the truth. And 9 times out of 10, the people already know the truth. They are just walking in denial, and so let's understand it. The words we speak are very important. Wise words satisfy like a good meal. Now let me do it this way. Can you remember the last good meal that you had? How satisfying that was? How it made you feel? You left the table and you left the table with the itis. You was ready to go lay down, ready to take. That's how we want our words, to make somebody feel good when they leave our presence. Amen. That's what you want. It brings satisfaction. Next, listen to this. This is in James, the 3rd chapter, the 6th to the 8th verse. And the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity. The tongue is so set among our members that it defiles the whole body and sets on the fire the course of nature, and is to set on fire by hell. Listen to this. Every kind of beast and bird, of reptile and creature of the sea, listen, is tamed and has been tamed by mankind. But listen to this. But no man can tame the tongue. It is an unruly evil full of deadly poison. We have to make sure. I'm not telling you not to talk. I'm not telling you to shut up, because we don't operate like that. Some people would lose it if they couldn't talk. Some people, I wouldn't say go crazy. Some people wouldn't be in the right frame of mind if they couldn't talk. We're not saying that. What we're saying is make sure that you choose your words wisely. And let's not even get involved. I'm going to go a little funny side. Let's not even get liquid courage into it. Oh, my goodness, the words that come. But we have to understand that this thing that dangles in our mouth is so full of deadly poison. You'd be surprised how many relationships have been broken up, marriages, associations, friendship, because of this thing that dangles in our mouth. And what we have to understand is that when we communicate, when we get finished talking, it's not about, it's not about, I got it off my chest. Remember what we said. Let me go back. Remember what you need to remember. When speaking, when someone else is speaking, practice getting out of your head into that. When I get done, did I touch your heart? Did I provoke a thought? Did I provoke something for you to think about where there's a change that's going to happen? That's what we want to do. I just don't want to talk. And when we get done, there ain't no difference. There ain't no food for thought. So we got to understand this thing that goes back and forth in the mouth, it can be deadly. It can be so unruly. And how do we tame it? How do we slow it down? Fasting and praying. By practice. Practice makes perfect. But what we have to do is make sure that we have to make sure is that we have to think before we speak. And what's very important is that I'm sharing this not to hurt you, but I'm sharing this to help you and me. Because guess what? The series topic is we need to talk. And I'm hoping that we've learned by the time this series is done, there's some serious conversation we have to have with some serious people. And some serious conversation starts with ourselves. So let me move on. John 3:11. This is what's very important. When you share verbally, this is what you need to remember, this verse. Verily, verily, I say unto thee, we speak that we do know, and testify that we have seen. I'm sorry. This is what's very important. You know how many people are talking something they know nothing about? You know how people are sharing things that they did not witness or see for themselves and causing a whole lot of chaos, a whole lot of mess? We have to make sure, speak the things that you know. If you don't know it, you don't have the facts with it, you don't have the truth about it, why are you speaking on it? If you did not witness it, you know how some people do. They just talking to hear themselves talk. Some people making up stories just to be part of the conversation. And somebody get to hear the story and take off running. And that didn't even happen. We got to be careful with that with the verbal. Let me move on. Number 2, nonverbal. Nonverbal, this type of communication includes posture, facial expressions, gestures, eye movement, and behavior. Behavior, that's where the behavior come in. Let me do that again. Posture, facial expressions, gestures, eye movements, and behavior. The American Sign Language is also recognized. Signing is recognized as, it's nonverbal, but it's recognized as a language. That falls into the nonverbal. Listen, posture, the position in which someone holds their body when standing or sitting. How many times have you had a conversation with somebody and their posture said, I do not feel like talking to you or listening to you? Don't that drive you crazy? And when you notice, what do you say? Well, you ain't listening. You don't really want to hear what I say. And it makes you say, I don't feel like talking. Make sure that your posture in a way, because this is your nonverbal. Your posture should be saying, hey. Now, people can't read your mind, but they can sure read your posture. Okay? Facial expressions. Oh, we could be all day on facial expressions. The feeling expressed on one person's face, on a person's face. Listen, our face can express happiness, sadness, disgust, surprise, content, anger, fear, and much more. We have to understand that our face says a lot. Our facial expressions say a lot. See, even the Bible gives us a few examples of people's facial expressions. I give you one. Cain's facial expression changed, or as the Bible said, fell, when his sacrifice, his offering was not accepted by the Lord. The Lord said, Cain, why are you angry? Why have your countenance failed? So a lot of times our face tells people what we are dealing with, what we're going through. Be careful. Now, I had to ask, and you can find that in Genesis 4, 5 through 6. Now, I had to ask my wife, this is nothing against Lady Jones, but I had to ask my wife because I could remember the song, but I couldn't remember the group. And the R&B group was the Rude Boys that said, it's written all over your face. You don't have to say, and it is that. It is written all over our face. And you have to understand, if it's written on your face, that's the first thing many people say. And we have to be careful how we express or how we share our face. There are times where our face is saying no, but our heart is saying yes. In other words, no, I don't want to talk. My heart wants me to talk. My heart wants me to address this issue. I'm tired of going through this, but my face is saying no. And a lot of times the face is the first thing people see, and the face is our guard, is our defense. This is for us to get a little laugh. There was a post on social media that said this: I need to teach my facial expressions how to use their inside voice. Because one thing we don't want to do is that we don't want to always drive people away because of our face. It happens. I know it happens with me. I'm not even going to lie. But you have to understand your facial expression is very important in communication. Because what happens is when somebody comes to you and they look like a sad puppy dog, or they look frustrated and stressed, and they say, we need to talk, you already can tell by their face how serious or how urgent the matter is. So facial expressions are very important in the nonverbal. Many times our facial expressions, listen, have started and ended a conversation without words even being spoken. Our facial expression. And many of us got to remember, listen, for many, the face is the gauge on whether I'm going to engage with this person about a specific topic. So we have to remember that's very important. That's the nonverbal, the facial expression, the posture. That's very important. Because what we're trying to do is this is what we're hoping to do by the end of this, that we've learned and we grow to say, hey, because that is one phrase I don't want to scare people, but we're going to have to say that many times for the rest of our life. Not many, but often we need to talk. If it's with the children, if it's with the spouse, if it's with the job, if it's with the ministry, if it's with the neighbor, we need to talk. And what we need to learn is that the tone is very important, our posture is very important, and the facial expression is important. So we'll move on. Move on. Number 3, another type of communication is visual. Visual social media, listen, has provided the world with a type of visual communication that has connected us across the world. From Zoom, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and many other social media platforms, a new dynamic to how we. I can tell you, I don't say love, I enjoy social media because what it can provide. Because there are some pastors, some artists that I follow, and you're allowed to see their concert, you're allowed them to preach. I don't have to go all the way to LA to hear somebody preach. I can see it right in my home. So that's the thing I do like about social. There have been times where people I haven't seen in a while, people I know from school, people I know from outside of school, from work, when they pass, I'm able to be informed because someone has tagged them or shared to their page. I might not have talked to them in 5, 7 years, but at least I will be able to be informed. So there are some pros to social media. There are some pros to Instagram and Facebook. Social media has allowed us and others to see into people's lives on a whole different level. And you have to understand, this is what's very important. Many people forgot this, but this is what you have to understand. Technology does not catch the Lord off guard. It's not by mistake that during a pandemic that affected the world that we had the technology or the ability, Facebook Live, YouTube, Zoom, Skype. We had the ability to stay connected and know what's going on, even though we were not together. So see, what you have to understand, many people try to down technology, down certain things, but it's not the technology that's bad or evil, it's how you use it. Because if you tell me now that how comfortable are we riding in a 1954 Henry T. Ford, 1954, I'm pretty sure that car didn't have AC. I'm pretty sure it didn't have heat. So with technology and advancements, they're good. But we have to understand it's good, but how we use it, how we apply it is very important. Listen to some pros and cons to the visual, to when it comes to social media. Pros, it helps marketing businesses, brands, ministries, helps you stay connected with family and friends. It can be informative. Social media can be informative. You can join groups and support systems. It can educate you, keep you abreast. Some pros to social media. Here are some cons to social media. Hacking, fraud, cyberbullying. It can be impersonal. Gossip and rumors, inappropriate and rude content. I find, and this is just me, I can speak for me. I would not share, or how can I say, relay a message through a post that I can't say to somebody's face. That's me. So when people don't say, well, you don't post a lot, you don't make a lot of comments, I'm one that I can just tell that person. I don't believe in as many, as the old saying is, I don't believe in throwing a brick into the crowd. If I got something to say to someone, I say it to them. Until I'm man enough, until we have the time to talk, I don't need to be posting what should have been said. You know, you're doing it indirectly. You're doing it from the third or fourth person. No, we need to talk. We need to communicate. So those are the pros and cons to it. Also, what comes under visual is signs and symbols. help us with visual communication. Road signs, traffic signs, signs at airports and stores and schools and jobs. Those things help us. Those things communicate with us. I can remember, I give you the story, my wife and I first flight together. We was in an airport that we had never been before. But they give you numbers on the terminals and things of that nature. Those helps you out. They'll communicate with you. It's just like when you're riding down the beltway. If you know you're going on a certain round of beltway, if you're going south, the numbers should be getting small. But if you go in a certain way and the numbers getting larger, you know what? You're going the wrong direction. It has communicated. Something visual has communicated. So it's very important. Very important. Have you ever met people that don't understand stop from yield? Those are signs. Stop or yield. It's very simple. Let me give you this example. An old preacher said this. If a police officer, this is a story, a police officer pulls somebody over and says, "Sir, you didn't stop at that sign." The sir said, "Yes, I did. I did stop at the sign." The police officer said, "Well, let me give you an example." He took out his baton, started hitting him on the head. "Do you want me to yield or do you want me to stop?" And the person said, "I want you to stop." Now you understand the difference. So you have to understand that. See, many times, same way when we talk, when we communicate, there's times when we need to yield, slow down, let somebody in, make room, and then sometimes we just need to stop talking. And you know that based on the communication. Next one, and we're going to end with this one and pick up on number 5 next week. Next one, very simple, we've all been doing, is written. Writing is a type of communication. Been around for a long time. People back in the day used to have pen pals. Those that don't have means to text by phones, there's sometimes people still write letters. Those are incarcerated, still write letters. Old-fashioned pen and paper. Even now, we have written communication through text and emails. One thing I want to encourage people to do, don't be as fast as me. Learn how to proofread your text. Proofread your posts. Because some people post or text like they talk. And there's nothing wrong with that. But you have to also understand when you're posting on social media, when you're writing, you're not just writing to share, but anybody can read. So now you have people reading like, what in the world was she saying? So you have to understand that. And when you write, when you communicate in written form, that you want to proofread, you want to spell check. You want to make sure that the message is conveyed. That's what's very important. So understand, next week we'll pick up on, we'll start with active listening and go into another part. But these are a few types of communication. And what's very important is we want to make sure that we communicate better, that we have an open road of communicating. And this is what really concerns me, is that many times we, like I said, I don't believe we never communicate. I believe many people communicate poorly. And I've learned just in studying this lesson that our behavior is a form of communication. And we have to remember that. So please remember, we need to talk. We need to communicate. I want to communicate better. I want to share better. I want somebody to receive the message better. Remember, we want to make sure that we're listening, not just hearing, but we're listening. I have been a victim of that. I heard somebody talking and said, yeah, and didn't listen to what they said. And then I said, yeah. And then when somebody said something 2 hours later, I said, well, I told you. And you said, yeah. And like, I did. That's what's very important, why you need to listen. You need to make sure it's clear. And we'll go through that when we're talking about, we have to make sure we're clear. Is the message clear? Do they understand? I don't want to be bad to tell people when you get finished talking with somebody and have a conversation with somebody, you get done with the conversation and say, shake your head if you understood. We don't need to treat people like children, but I need you to understand that when we get finished communicating, did you understand what I was saying? Not only understand was very important, did you feel where I was coming from? Because at the end of communicating, at the end of the conversation, did you feel what I felt? And see, sometimes people do things, make decisions, and they're only thinking about themselves. So when you share, you want to share on the point of, do you understand how that made me feel? Not that I need the invite, not that I would need a phone call, but a lot of times most people don't understand that. But inconsideration is a low grade of rudeness. Not that I was going to say yes, not that I didn't already have plans, but it's the consideration. How many times have you been offended because people were just inconsiderate? But you have to communicate that. Because guess what? Just because somebody falling down is not a problem, staying down is. And see, what happens is when somebody practices something, it's not a mistake. It's a trained behavior or it's a habit. Some people have bad habits when it comes to communicating. And we want to help them with that. So please remember our lessons, we need to talk. Communication is key. Ministries, jobs, families. You can go on and on. We need to make sure that we communicate better. We don't want the ushers fighting in the back because this usher didn't communicate with that. We don't want while the praise team up there, people making hand gestures because they missed that line or they not. We want to communicate. And when we're getting to the point when we communicate, we do it in a way where the message is heard and people understand our heart, understand where we're coming from. So let's give the Lord a hand praise. Let's give the Lord praise and honor and thanks for this message. Those that joined us through Facebook and YouTube, thank you for joining us. As we said, we're in our series, We Need to Talk. Communication is key. This is week 2. So thank you for spending time with us. Please like, share, subscribe. Let somebody know about Restoration and Dominion Ministry. We are a church on the move. We're a ministry that's new, fresh. We still got Similac breath, but the Lord is growing us up. Don't y'all make that face. I like that. But the Lord is blessing us and keeping us. Please tell somebody about us. Share. We love to hear from you. So thank you, Facebook Live. Thank you, YouTube. Please, if you haven't, please sow into the ministry. Please sow a seed. You can visit our website. We have multiple ways to give to the ministry. We thank you. We thank you. We thank you. Bless you in the name of Jesus. Amen.